Hey, Vinny Melkus here, Ronin Fishing. We're a few days away from TNPFL's final event at Grand Lake in Grove, Oklahoma. And then for me, I go from there and go straight to Vegas for the U.S. Open, put on by One Bass, Lake Mead, one of my favorite events. So we'll talk about that, but first, I'll give you a little something. This is my, just a little teaser. It's my favorite bait, probably in the topwater category. It's super hard to get. We'll talk about that real quick. In fact, I have to order it from overseas at this point, not Japan either. But there's guys that paint these baits over in Japan. They sell them aftermarket. But even if you try to get one now, you're like 2-3 weeks out trying to order them because they got to ship them from overseas. But this bait is a version of one that's well known here in the States for, walk the dog type stuff. It's made by Lucky Craft. It's a Sammy, but it's not just any Sammy, right? So I just got this one. So I've had one other one, and I got this one, and I've never seen them in the States. I don't know what it is because they're pretty awesome, especially coming into the fall. And that's this little dude. So this is a Sammy, but it's the Sammy 65. So you can get a Sammy 85 over here. You can get a Sammy 100, 120, whatever the other sizes are that are larger. And they're effective, obviously. When you get into this fall period where fish are keying in on those smaller threadfin shad that are now juveniles, they're past the third slurping stage or on the tail end of that where you got those little fry. And you might not even get a slurping phase in your lake if you have enough of a population that's around of adult threadfin shad. But when you get to this, you got those yearling threadfin shad that are now into that, or even gizzards that are 1.5 to 3 inches long. Man, this little topwater, I'll tell you what, and I throw it on, it's a little less than a 1/4 ounce. I throw it on a spinning rod. I've had some awesome action where other topwaters won't work, where other even, small finesse baits won't work in super clear water. This thing is money, and they're really tough to find. Like I said, I got two, and I treat them like gold. Even though the other one, even if you find some of the colors are really hard to find. Like I got this, and I got like a chartreuse translucent color, and super great baits. The only thing is with the, when you're fishing the small bait like this, it's fighting a fish. It's a little more precarious because of the hook size, and you don't want to upsize your hooks too much because you affect the way these small baits act. But so with the small hooks and the larger fish, you kind of just got to play them, and you're using lighter tackle anyway, so you want to play them anyway. But very effective in the fall is a time when I start throwing those like super mash to hatch type baits. And then you want to do that too, coupled with a lot of these lakes. Like, well, I'm not going to probably throw this at Grand because Grand's a little bit off color. But a place like Grand has been pounded. Like it was tied into the TNPFL final, and this is my outlook on the Grand Lake thing. So I got fished it a few times this year. I fished it for pre-practice, and I seem to do pretty well in Grand, or I feel like I do. I have the capability of doing very well in Grand. I've caught a lot of big fish this year on Grand. Seen a lot of bait fish in pre-practice in areas that I know on Grand. There's so much pressure right now. Grand is known as being pressured. A lot of tournaments on Grand, and we've just had a giant one, BFL. It's a giant, like, we're talking close to 200 boats. To me, that's a big tournament, right? 200 boats, co's and pros for at least one day. I think the second day they cut it, but for at least one day out there. Whoa! Oh man, I thought maybe my tire popped there. For at least one day, you have almost 200 boats, and then it gets cut down. Then when we're coming, the TNPFL, the league, when we get there, first day of practice for us, first day we can be on the water, and since they cut off, about a month ago, or 21 days, whatever it is, but it's the 6th. They have a big local tournament there. Well, they're gonna have another local tournament, I think this weekend, or last weekend they had a local tournament, a little one, 40 boats, I believe. Or it's rated for 40 boats. I don't know what they drew, but the Nichols one is what it is. Yeah, they usually do have a couple hundred boats, from my knowledge, and it's a 2-dayer. And the final day is our first practice day. that's going to throw off a lot, because that's a team tournament, I believe. So you think 200 boats, 400 anglers, local guys too. You know, these guys have knowledge. They're going to be in places. Even if you found fish in pre-practice, you think you got something, the chances are, if it's something that you didn't know that the local guys knew about, they're going to be all over that, right? So this tournament here for me, especially when you get in the fall tournaments, it's about decision making and being able to expand on water. And like I said in a previous video, what I've learned this year is just like keep things a lot simple from you guys that win these things, bait wise and what. It's simple, and I'm always looking for that. Just like that, I'm always looking for that marginal thing. So when there is those, you know, off the wall patterns come to play, that I'm in the mix, you know. Which in fact, the majority of the time, especially on these lakes that have like a lot of history, or in the Midwest and South, you need to keep it simple and you need to find the area. But anyway, so pressure is going to be an issue, and then you put us on there for 3 days of practice, 100 boats, and you're going to have pressured fish. I'm anticipating it being an average about 19 to 20 pounds a day to win this thing. To get a check on this tournament, you just need probably 12 pounds a day. 12 to 13 pounds a day, you should get a check. And then there's going to be a lot of guys struggling. And that's the only reason I say that. Grand's an awesome lake. Grand, anywhere you're at, 20-pound bag swimming around you somewhere. But these Grand looks, you know, not all the fish are on all the time on Grand. And sometimes they lock down. You know, it can be a fickle lake. But the other issue, if you don't have experience on Grand, which I've talked to a lot of these guys, they don't, everything starts looking the same. You go to certain places, this boat dock set up the same way. Areas of the lake, you're like, okay, how do they want to be in the dirty water, or do they want to be in the clear water? Or you could have two segments of the lake that are clear, but one in the middle is dirty. I mean, there's all kinds of issues that can come with Grand because you're looking at it. Docks suck a lot of people in, because all the docks, but not all docks are created equal, right? There, as I've learned fishing the Ozarks, but it's hard to differentiate those docks if you're not used to it. So we'll see what happens. Or maybe docks won't even play. I mean, there's a lot of times docks don't even play, even though there's docks everywhere. So it's going to be, it'll be an interesting tournament. It'll be fun. I think I'll do well. And like I said, I anticipate close to 60 pounds to win the thing. And that average in 19, 20 pounds a day. You might even have a great big bag from somebody, at least one of the days. Maybe big fish will probably be 6.5, 7 pounds. That's what I'm going to say that. I mean, there's bigger fish in Grand, but I think realistically, after all the pressure and whatnot, you start getting a lot of these fish pulling up and, you know, feeding. I think you're going to get some 6-pounders for sure. You know, 4s and 5s, yeah, all day long. There's going to be a lot of people, even people that do bad, that might have like a good 4 or 5 pounder in their sack, and they might not have a full limit though. So let's go from there, because you guys can actually watch that streaming, watch everything on that one, and that one's coming up this weekend. Now, then I go to the U.S. Open. U.S. Open, a lot of you people probably don't, unless you're from out west, aren't too privy about it, and you might watch the weigh-ins and whatnot. They don't really have on-the-water coverage. One of the reasons being, they do some on-the-water coverage, like on Havasu, on some of their events where they can get a boat out there. It's not, you know, up to snuff like Bass and TNPFL or MLF, but they try, you know. But Lake Means is just one of those lakes. It's so vast and signals so sparse, they're not going to have it. You're just going to get the weigh-in. But it is one of the most challenging tournaments. Right now, unfortunately, we're down to 211 boats, I believe, there. Still, that's a big tournament. Big names are going to be there. Big names from all the circuits. You know, you got MLF guys, you got Bass guys, and you got TNPFL guys that are going to be there. And then you got local West, and then you got Wild West guys and local sticks. So it's amalgamation of all the trails, and it's a prestigious event. What's going to happen there? Every year is a little bit different. Water levels extremely low this year. So some areas that, I was talking about this with another guy, some areas you fished last year just gone. They're not there anymore. But the fish are going to be around, I'll tell you that. The last couple of years, I've found schooling fish fairly easy. The problem being with these fish is finding the ones that are actually keepers, because there's a bunch. And I didn't, Lake Mead, you don't think of, there's not as many fish per acre as other lakes, but when you find these schools of bass, man, there's a bunch of them. There's a bunch of them in places that they move around, especially the smallmouth, but I've found the largemouth doing the same thing. They move around, so you got to hit them at the right time and the right place. But there are good fish in Lake Mead. But what the difference is between like a Grand and the Mead, like let's say you do get one of those 4-pounders, that's a game-changing fish on Mead. Now, if you get a 4-pounder or you get a 3 every day, then you just worry about filling out your bag, because you're going to be in the running. At Mead, if you get 8 to 9 pounds a day, you'll get a check, or you'll be in check range. Granted, that it doesn't pay out the same as like these other ones, so you might, in the grand scheme of things, after expenses, you might get your money back. Like saying, grand scheme of things, might get your money back. If you want to place in the top 20 in this event out of 200 boats. I know that sounds pretty hard, and it is, but to do that, you need to get 9 to 10. This is a game of ounces on Mead, so 9 to 10 pounds a day, and you're going to be in probably the top 10, to be honest. 8.5 to 9 and a quarter or whatever a day. You're averaging that out. You're going to be in that top 20. That's what you want. So you're aiming for pretty much 9 pounds a day to, one, be in the game, and then 2, just to get in the top 20. And you think that's not very much weight, right? Well, Mead is not known for big. It has some big fish in it. I've seen some big fish there, smallies and a few big largemouth, but they're not in the concentrations as other lakes. And it's a dynamic, I call them dynamic fisheries, or 2-story fisheries, where you have such levels of depth with clarity that fish can occupy different strata of the water column. So you take into account the vastness of shoreline, and then the water column, you're talking about a lot of more places these fish can be, and they will be spread out. I mean, a lot of guys that win, they win under 15 foot to power fishing in a lot of these, and then sometimes, it's finesse fishing at 60 foot. But that's what I mean, you could have that. I mean, a lot of the power fishermen have been winning these things recently, in recent years, but you do have those fish, and guys find them 60 foot. Shad go down there, shad move around. Shad will pull up in the morning sometimes, and they'll be in 10 foot of water, they'll be busting on the surface. Next thing you know, as that sun comes up, because we're just beginning the fall, it still gets 90 something degrees out there. At the end, in the middle of the day, the shad, a lot of times they pull back out deep, and the fish follow them, and then they come back up in the evening, or the latter stretches. Usually, last year there's so many boats. The last couple of years, you end up, if you get a good number on the first day, or a bad number on the first day, either way, you're going to have one of those days where you're like checking in at 5:30, right? So you get to see the end of the day. And last year I had one of those days, and I got to see those fish come back from in the morning after catching them, come back into the shallower areas, which are relatively shallow. For shallow there, 15 feet, and shallower everywhere else, that's like mid-depth level. But anyway, so Mead's going to be fun. To me, Mead's fun to watch because it is a crapshoot in a sense. It's a decision-making thing. One, you're going to be out in the water in the heat, battling any kind of weather, but also trying to figure out how the fish are moving, because they move a lot this time of year there. They also school, and it can be fun. It can be fun and good. One fish on Mead changes everything for somebody, the right fish, So look at that. Look at check out those tournaments, because they're fun to watch. They're fun to keep track of. And if you're in it, like right now, I think Billy England, I can't pronounce the name of it, but he's the tournament director for One Bass. I think they're still looking for pros if you wanted to hop in there, like $1,700 and you can still get in on that right now, because we got 211. A lot of guys have dropped out. He's normally shooting for 250 now. But anyway, I'll talk to you later. Like, subscribe. Peace.